up. We've kind of been, I don't know, I won't say bogged down, but we're covering what the Lord gave us opportunity to do. And kind of been a help anyway, as we think of different people. I thought of this week. We're looking at Ziba and Shimei and Hushai and the various things that happened with them in the life of David, and the fact that God sent some people in his life that were a blessing, and well, some that were a cursing, and some that caused him trouble. But can you think of people in your life that have been a great blessing? Can you put a name and a face? Can you put some things that they've done? Y'all just had a special pastor that passed away, Brother Rainey. Sounded like he was a great influence. And heaven get a little bit sweeter because I didn't get to meet him. I look forward to that. And how many years ministry was it that he was in? 56. And a lot of people that you've come in contact with, you think, why? Why did God give me that little? Some people get in part of your life a short time. You say, well, that was nice. Some will be there for a long time. Some will make a lifetime of memory. And that's a great thing. And I think God had a special way of putting some people in our Bible so we could have some lessons, we have some teachings that would, as we face some trial and difficulty. I heard of one dad that was teaching his children Bible verses. Somebody said, well, what was his favorite Bible verse that he taught his kids? And he said, Proverbs 1:10. Proverbs, that doesn't fit me. Proverbs, think of what? Proverbs 3:5, wouldn't you? With all your heart? Well, he said he taught his kids one. I want to make sure I get it right, so I'm going to try to say it, but it's easy. I should remember it. I had it right anyway. Proverbs 1:10, my son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. You heard that? If sinners entice thee, consent thou not. It kind of goes along with my message this morning as well, but it goes along with this message because of the fact that, some people will try to get you to do wrong. They'll try to, you get with the right friends and you'll do right. You get with the wrong crowd, it's trouble. You kind of get a sense that there's some things happening in David's life, especially with his family. Now, he's been promised by God that he was going to receive some various challenges with his entire life after his sin with Bathsheba, but especially with the killing of her husband. That really kind of just took it over the top, and God put it right there upon him that he was going to face some serious consequences as a result of what happened. So we're looking at the various consequences really after that incident, and we've come down to 2 Samuel chapter 16 and verse number 15 is where I want to kind of look at a little bit here on this Ahithophel's counsel. Verse 15 says, and Absalom and all men of the people, the men of Israel, came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel with him. Now, let me remind you, Absalom has rebelled against his dad. He's got a conspiracy going on, and he's got more and more people that are following him, and he has now put his dad, King David, into a position where he had to make a decision. Do I fight my own son to maintain the throne, or do I just simply step back and leave and give this some time to work out? And David has decided he would leave Jerusalem, take as many people would go with him. He would leave an entourage, though, in Jerusalem to take care of the palace, take care of things there. And he would just simply step back and give things some time to settle down. And hopefully it began to work out where Absalom would repent. Well, he didn't. Absalom got harder. He got more people behind him. Ahithophel would come along and take up with Absalom. Now, Ahithophel was, get this, Bathsheba's grandfather. And you look at that and you go, oh, don't you think he might be a little bit upset at David? A little bit angry because he lost a grandson? Wow. Some things there could be bitterness in his heart. He goes on the side of Absalom. He leaves David. He goes on the side. Now, Ahithophel was apparently a very important advisor to David, but now he is taken off, going with him. This is the kind of thing David is facing at this point in his life. And we talked about the fact that he had Ziba come along and tell him about things with Mephibosheth and what Mephibosheth had decided, and all the things that are going on with Shimei, who came and cast stones at David, cursed at David. We talked about that last week. And David just had one thing upon another, but this thing with Ahithophel kind of just sets the scene for some very troubling days that he's going to have to face. Ahithophel in verse 15, verse 16 says that it came to pass when Hushai the Archite, David's friend, was come unto Absalom, that Hushai said unto Absalom, God save the king. God save the king. Now, Hushai was a friend of David, verse 37 of chapter 15. He is also one that David gave instructions. Hey, I want you to go and be my spy. Pretend to be a servant of Absalom, pretend to be on his side. And so that's what is happening. Hushai is coming into Absalom's, and he's portraying himself as a great friend of Absalom. He's going to be a supporter. Well, Absalom said to Hushai, is this thy kindness to thy friend? Why wentest thou not with a friend? Great question. Why didn't you go with David? Why are you're I understand Absalom must have known. He said, I know that you're a friend of David. So Hushai said unto Absalom, nay, but whom the Lord and this people and all the men of Israel choose, his will I be, and with him I abide. And again, whom should I serve? Should I not serve in the presence of his son, as I have served in thy father's presence? So will I be in thy presence. Then said Absalom to Ahithophel, give counsel among you what we shall do. Now, I've kind of wrestled. Was Hushai doing something here that was going to make himself jeopardize in the eyes of God? Is it ever legitimate to tell a lie? Well, someone say, well, sure, if you're really trying to protect somebody, it might be an all right thing. I got to looking at this, go, wait just a minute. Does Hushai know how this is going to end? Does Hushai have an idea? It's all going to work out and David's going to be king again. No, he doesn't. You and I have the benefit, wait just a minute, Hushai, it's all going to work out. David's going to be king. He didn't know that. So I think he is just simply doing one of those supposed ideas. And the idea of just expressing something that he is, again, portraying what he needs to. Oh, wait, just a minute. What do you do in war? Well, someone said, a little slang idea, all's fair in love and war. King David is a commander of the army. He could have gathered an army and fought against Absalom. He chose not to, but he is at war with his son because of the conspiracy. His throne is being threatened. That did not happen in the days of the kings of David. Those kind of kings, you threaten their throne, they're going to come after you. He had every right to. He is simply acting, I think, as an obedient man to the command of the king. And so therefore, there is nothing in here that we need to portray in a derogatory sense. He's following orders, okay? But he is also giving us a little glimpse here that when you're in the midst of a situation, you don't know how it's going to end. I don't think Hushai knew. Now, he had an idea that he was leaning toward. Of course, he wants his David to win. But what Absalom? You're going to find out David has done what he's done for one reason. And I say it here at this point. David loves Absalom. He really did. He didn't want this to happen. All the things that were going on were out of David's control. I don't think David understood what exactly was happening with Absalom. But the fact of the matter is, he still loved him. So he's doing everything he can to protect him, and he's even using Hushai to do so. Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go in unto thy father's concubines, which he hath left to keep the house, and all Israel shall hear that thou art abhorred thy father. Then shall the hands of all that are with thee be strong." So they spread Absalom a tent upon the top of the house. Absalom went in unto his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. The counsel of Ahithophel, which he counseled in those days, was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. So was all the counsel of Ahithophel, both with David and with Absalom. And so Absalom has sought out counsel. Hushai is pretended to be with him. Ahithophel gives this idea to him, one that he knew would cause a great stir among the people. Not so much David, but I think it would upset David rather greatly. But he knew it would be just a sign, an indication that there's been a very tragic incident that happened in the eyes of the king. He's dishonored. This is a dishonoring of the king, the way this is treated. To treat these concubines the way that he was treating them was a dishonor, was disrespectful, was a total state here that was going to create a frustration for David. It would also create a situation where Absalom would begin to show himself as a power. I have power over these ones. I have the ability to stand in the place of the king. Well, Absalom would follow Ahithophel's advice, and we're continuing to see David reaping. David reaped with Bathsheba's child dying. David reaped by his daughter Tamar being taken advantage of by her half reapings that David received. Now this is the fourth. David is publicly disgraced by Absalom. Publicly disgraced. David is aware that things are now continuing to progress and be more difficult kingdom. How would he ever get them reunited? Well, he was going to have God intervene on the behalf of the things with Absalom to get it all brought to a stop. Chapter 17 and 18 is that reconciliation or that final resolution to this whole thing. And I don't have the rest of the day to explain it all, nor to read every passage of it. So I'm going to give you some of the highlights, okay? In chapter 17, verse number 1, Ahithophel said unto Absalom, "Let me now choose out 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue David this night." Now this is going to be Ahithophel's counsel about this pursuit of David. Then Ahithophel's counsel was immediately to pursue. Hushai is going to counsel the opposite. We'll get to that. Verse number 11. "For I counsel all that," this is Hushai, "that all Israel be generally gathered unto thee from Dan even to Beersheba." And that's basically from the north of Israel to the south of Israel. "As the sand that is by the sea, from you, that thou go to battle in thine own person." Absalom is told to gather and to fight David himself, just like David. David would often go into battle himself. But Hushai knew something. If a king himself goes to battle, he has to take more warriors. He has to do more things to protect himself. It's going to take longer for Absalom to get in pursuit. It's going to give David more time to what? Keep the distance further between Absalom and himself. He'd be able to get further away. Verse 14. "Absalom and all the men of Israel said, The counsel of Hushai is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. For the Lord to defeat the good counsel of Israel, to the intent that the Lord might bring evil upon Absalom." Now, I noted this about verse 14. Very interesting statement made here in the Word of God. Absalom and all the men of Israel got together, said, okay, which counsel did we take? And everybody said, we like Hushai's counsel better. It says in that next sentence, in verse 14, for the Lord. The decision making here is not just Hushai and Ahithophel in their counsel, and not just on Absalom. God is directing things. God directs an evil king. Really? Yeah, he can use an evil king sometimes. He's done that over and over again throughout the Bible. You find different times he takes someone that was just despicable, but in the course of human events, we've seen different ones that are just awful. They're terrible. They're evil. But God's used them. And we would say, that's terrible. Well, God has wisdom about things. He has his plan. He's usually working something out you and I can't possibly know the beginning to the end. But God does. For the Lord had appointed to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, to the intent that the Lord might bring evil upon Absalom. God gave you just a little glimpse in that sentence alone that God had a plan about this, and he knew what was taking place, but yet it had to unfold. Why? Well, I think it goes back to that reaping and sowing thing. David's family, after his sin with Bathsheba, after all of that condition, David's family would never be the same. There would be serious consequences throughout his family. I'm talking about his wives, his children. There would be serious things that would take place in their lives because of what David did and the conditions that would go on. But now we've got this thing with Absalom. What's going on with Absalom? Why would he make the conspiracy against his dad? Why would he want to take this kind of power upon himself and position it to the throne and to replace his dad? His dad was still alive. David was, okay, he made a mistake. All right, he sinned against God. But he was still a good king. He's leading him in the right ways. Why would Absalom do this? Pride has an ugly way of showing its face. Pride and arrogancy. The attempt to raise up and say, I have a right. I should be king. I think God is revealing in the heart of Absalom, and he's saying to all of us, you're reading the story about Absalom, you're reading the things about him, you read the things of other kings. I've been exposing to you the very evil that can exist in people. Boy, oh boy, are we ever seeing that in our day and time, the evil that can exist. Okay. Hushai said unto Zadok and to Abiathar the priest, thus and thus did Ahithophel counsel Absalom. The elders, in verse 15 is where we're at. The elders of Israel, thus and thus have I counseled. Now therefore send quickly, tell David, saying, lodge not this night in the plains of the wilderness, but speedily pass over, lest the king be swallowed up and all the people that are with him. So now Jonathan, Ahimaaz stayed by Enrogel. They might not be seen to come into the city. A wench. Okay, Old English language sometimes don't get bent out of shape. It's a lady, probably a lady of the night, someone that could present themselves in a position. Okay, we know why they're out at night. And it would not cause any concern. Okay? The whole situation is just one of leadership and what God has done. They went and told King David. Nevertheless, the lad saw them, told Absalom, but they went both of them away quickly, came to a man's house in Bahurim, which had a well in his court, whither they went down. The woman took and spread a cover on his mouth, spread her ground corn thereon, and the thing was not known. She hid the men, and they come and try to discover what's going on. They figure out that these men are not there, and so they leave. It came to pass, verse 21, after they were departed, that they came up out of the well, went and told King David, said unto David, arise, pass quickly over the water, for thus hath Ahithophel counseled against you. So David has left Jerusalem. You leave Jerusalem just a few miles out, and it becomes nothing but desert. Back then, I think it would have been even more so. Now there's a big highway between Jerusalem and the Jordan River. And from the north of Israel down to the south of Israel, down past the Dead Sea, there's a big highway today. But believe me, along that highway is the Jordan on the one side and the Dead Sea, but on the other side is nothing but desert. I mean, it's barren ground. There's hardly anything that grows on the ground. It was remarkable to me. It's still that way today. I imagine it was more so then. It was called a wilderness. And we're talking about Jerusalem, and just a few miles away is the River Jordan. Okay? David is going to cross the River Jordan and go over into what today is Jordan or Saudi Arabia, but then it was still under the control of Israel. There was tribes of Israel on that side, but it is even more wilderness. There's some mountains right next to the coastline of Jordan, but they're barren. We have beautiful mountains. They're covered with trees and all kind of flourishing nature, right? Their mountains are just rocks. You'll see a picture of one in a few minutes when I put my PowerPoint up for the morning service. You just look at it and you go, nothing's growing there. Well, there'll be little patches of trees in one little spot. En Rogel is one of those places too that would have just trees. En Gedi, you remember that statement of David going to En Gedi, a little spot of a stream that would come out of the mountains. There was trees and some things around that. All around there was nothing but rocks. And all the hills had caves in them, and they were just all kinds of desert land. Well, listen, David is moving and getting further away from Absalom. It came to pass, verse 27, when David was come to Mahanaim, that Shoab the son of Nahash of Ramoth, daughter of Ammon, Machir the son of Amiel of Lodabar, and Barzillai the Gileadite of Rogelim, brought beds, basins, earthen vessels, wheat, barley, flour, parched corn, beans, lentils, parched pulse, honey, butter, sheep, cheese of kind, for David, for the people that were with him to eat. For they said, the people is hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. You remember how David met Hushai? He had 2 donkeys with him, and he had them packed full of all kinds of things. This is part of it. But also he had others that were starting to bring everything. They heard what was going on now. The word was spreading. They're taking care of David. God takes care of God's man in the midst of God's trouble. Does the Lord try his servants? The trial of your faith, the New Testament says, is more precious than gold. David is under trial, but God is protecting him. God gives you a little glimpse. He takes and protects those ones that are going to have the report coming from Hushai and coming from the men that are serving underneath David. He's getting a report, but he doesn't know what's happening. Well, David numbered the people of chapter 18 that were with him, set captains of thousands, captains of hundreds over them. David was a good commander. Now he is doing something that a war king would do. He is preparing his people for battle. He knows that's going to be coming. He's got to figure out what he's going to do. So he's going to prepare his people. David sent forth a third part of the people under the hand of Joab, a third of the part under the hand of Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, a third part under the hand of Ittai the Gittite. And the king said unto the people, I will surely go forth with you myself also. The people said, just a minute. That's a good idea, but if you go with us, you're liable to die. Thou shalt not go forth. They said in verse number 3. Then, verse 4, the king said unto them, What seemeth you best, I will do. The king stood by the gate side, and all the people came out by hundreds and by thousands. And the king commanded Joab, Abishai, and Ittai. Not only was God taking care of David and protecting him and providing for him, but now he's given him some loyalty, some people that are loyal to him, and that he can be able to command and instruct and continue to prepare things. Well, the rest of the story here simply gives us what happens to Absalom. Absalom is going to begin to make his way toward the battle. Verse 8, for the battle was there scattered over the face of all the country. The good and the wood devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. That was a battle. That was just chaos. Absalom met the servants of David. Absalom rode upon a mule. The mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak. His head caught hold of the oak. He was taken up between the heaven and the earth. The mule that was under him went away. Now, does that give you a picture of what? Absalom, according to what we read earlier, was a very handsome, very beautiful man. Had quite an appearance. And apparently had quite the hairdo. Apparently it was quite obvious that he took a lot of pride in his hair. And it had become such a standing here that it even got him in trouble because of this oak tree. He got his hair caught in that oak tree. What did the mule do? He walked away. He got startled. He walked away. Now there's a picture. A man is hanging in a tree, and the mule underneath him walks away. Probably got scared and bucked him. Mules do that, you know. Bucked him off, and next thing you know, he's just hanging there. He cannot get himself down. The rest of the story there tells us that some people came by. They could have put Absalom to death. They chose not to. Joab found out what was happening. He said, Why didn't you take care of this? We're at war with this man. Joab goes and he puts him to death. They took Absalom, cast him into a great pit in the wood, verse 17. And so he is the conspiracy is going to end right there. The whole situation is going to begin to unravel for Absalom. Verse 18 says, Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself a pillar, which is in the king's dale, for he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. And he called the pillar after his own name and is called unto this day Absalom's place. I don't know. That would have been somewhere probably right outside the city of Jerusalem, possibly between Jerusalem and Hebron, where he had stirred up the conspiracy. But he's raised up a pillar, kind of like Nebuchadnezzar with that old gold image. You just got a little image, though, of exactly why God was dealing with Absalom the way he was. This man was so full of pride. God had to expose it. God will deal with pride, will he not? And he did so. Absalom's put to death. Joab is going to take back the word to David. And David, in response, verse number 33, the king was much moved, went up to the chamber over the gate, wept, and as he went, thus he said, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would God I had died. O Absalom, my son, my son. What a great, great weeping there is for David. That's where I say David loved Absalom. All of this whole situation, though, you're going to find God has worked. In verse number 31, it says, For the Lord hath avenged thee this day of them that rose up against thee. The Lord hath avenged. Well, we kind of remember that. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord, right? There's some things that only God should take care of. I think that's a pretty good instruction for us concerning David. David could have defeated Absalom, nothing flat. I believe that. I believe he could have taken his mighty men, his valiant men. He could have ended that conspiracy without ever leaving Jerusalem. But God gave us a little glimpse about taking care of certain things ourselves, and sometimes it's better to let God take care of it. Let the Lord lead in the way He is going to handle a situation, and it works out a lot better. David will always grieve because of Absalom, but he will come to appreciate God. Just read some of the Psalms, the way that God worked on behalf of David. And David is going to turn out to really be blessed in the latter part of his years with the things that he writes, the things that God leads him, and then to raise up his son Solomon is a real blessing too. God bless you. Let's get ready for our morning service.